Awesome. All right. Yeah. Welcome, everyone. We're on page 94. And actually, we're going to be kicking off on a part of the book that I know none of us could ever relate to. It's the bottom paragraph. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all of the program. No, none of us have been there, could relate to that. And so just to sort of, and because, I wasn't here last week. Kate did a phenomenal workshop, but just to sort of contextualize where we're at in the chapter Working with Others. This chapter has given us direction and instruction on how to find a sponsee, like where to get somebody to work with, how to have some of those initial introductory conversations, and how to kick it off and really lay down the foundational information of steps 1, steps 2, and steps 3. And that's where we're leaving off. So we laid down the information about the step 1, the physical allergy, the obsession of the mind, the hopelessness. Then we outlined the idea that there is a spiritual solution, a spiritual awakening is the answer that we have. And we explained the program of action, why we're sitting with this newcomer or this prospect and trying to help them through the work. And so we're right at that place that I know we all know intimately, not you guys, but I know intimately well. It's when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous and I did this thing. It's called auditing the steps. And if you're wondering, it's completely different than actually doing the steps. It's not even talking about them. It's not even like, giving my opinion on them, theorizing on them. No. It is this. That one. Some of that one, not that one. Ew, gross. No, not that. Yuck, not doing that. None of that. That doesn't apply to me. Again, I'm sure none of you guys can relate to the step auditing, but that's what I was like when I got here. This applies, this doesn't apply. So welcome those that just joined us. We're bottom of page 94. And we're kicking off with the line, your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all of the program, which is such a human moment. A moment we've all been through. And again, the book meets us where we're at and takes us where we need to go. And that's the exact same thing that we're going to try to help this newcomer go through. So it says, he may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning. Again, how do I know if I've been fearless and thorough on my 4-step? It feels pretty drastic. And which requires discussion with other people. Because really, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of step 5. That's why anyone would sit on their 4. I'm sitting on 4 because I'm afraid of 5. I'll write about it. I just don't want you to tell you about it because I'm afraid you're going to reject me. And so that is the problem. This is the direction in response to it. Don't contradict such views. Tell him you once felt it as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. So instead of trying to fight, instead of trying to argue, instead of trying to convince, now I know all of us being wonderful alcoholics, none of us have that defect of character that is known as being argumentative. Not you guys, never. And I know nobody here has ever fallen into like any sort of argument with an alcoholic, whether it be a sponsee or at a business meeting or that sort of thing, or online. By the way, if you're arguing with somebody about AA online, you don't know if they're sober. You're just assuming that you're talking to a sober, sane, sound person and we're going to change their mind. Might as well just assume they're drunk and give them that grace, But it's saying, like, don't get into argument. You know why? Because if you tell me and you've tried to argue with me, what am I going to do? Am I going to be the awakened spiritual giant that is, golly gee, you are right. You made a series of compelling arguments. I've changed my mind. I'm ready to go. Or am I going to get the B word, belligerent, and I'm gonna double down. Some of you were worried about the B word I was gonna use. No, I am doubling down, and I am like, I'm not here for it. I'm fighting you on it. And I'm not working with any sort of rational brain. And so it says, don't contradict such views. And it says, tell him you once felt as he did. And so what we're doing in there is we're meeting them where they're at with that understanding. And you know, some of you guys know that I am an inventory gal. Like, I have a hoodie that says inventory behooves me, because it does. Like, I love inventory, and I love what it does for me. I love the change that happens. And when I have people that come to me with problems, guess what some of the first suggestions are going to be? It's going to be inventory. We're going to look to prayer. We're going to look to meditation. We're going to look to, is there an amend we need to make? We're going to take spiritual action. But here's what I've learned. Like, we are going to solution. There is no doubt about that. Like, girl, I don't got time. I don't have time. But what I have learned is I do need to give that acknowledgement. And so a lot of times when people are bringing me stuff, I'm back with the ex again. I've broken up with the ex. I'm back with the ex. I've broken up with the ex. You know, what do I need to do? Well, clearly we got to take some inventory. Like, we got to have a look at this girl, because there is a pattern that is repeating. But if all I do is say, let's write inventory, a lot of times people don't feel heard and they feel shut down. So what the direction here is to acknowledge. And that's what I do, is to say, like, yeah, I hear you. What you're going through is really hard. That sounds really painful. That is tough to navigate. That's why I think it is so important that we do inventory. The inventory is not a punishment. The inventory is a way to move through this. And so that's what it's saying here. So instead of saying, you're wrong, you got to do it, you say, I hear you. I don't want to do inventory. Man, can I tell you about some amends that I did not want to do? You know? Actually, Kate was filling in, and she did this beautiful workshop on two-way prayer. And I have done two-way prayer. I've done it for years, and it's a powerful experience. But y'all want to know how I got the habit out of doing two-way prayer? I've been out of the habit for a little while. It's because I had a situation where somebody was really mean to me, and I was afraid that God was going to make me make an amends to that guy. And I'm like, I'm not, no thank you. And so I got out of the habit. And is that message perhaps more helpful than me saying, you got to do, right? It's to say, man, I've been there. Here's how I overcame it. And this is the overcoming, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. The two-way prayer workshop wasn't recorded, but I do have a recording of a workshop that I did on meditation. And in it we spoke about two-way prayer. And so if you remind me, because I will need to be reminded, because we know how this brain works, I'll send you the recording. Absolutely. Tell him you've once felt as he did, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. On your first visit, tell him about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, in 2025, they know. I mean, to be fair, if we're like coming across them in the wild, they might not. And a lot of times, like I speak about the power of amends, because so often a 9th step call can turn into a 12th step call. And so we might come across people that don't know about Alcoholics Anonymous, or don't know about, what Alcoholics Anonymous really is. But most of the time, where do we find potential newcomers to work with? A meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. So they kind of already have at least some idea. And it's okay if it's not a perfect idea or if it's an incorrect idea. So they already know at least enough in 2025. But it says, if he shows interest, lend him your copy of this book. Now, I will be transparent with you guys. This is a direction that I do not follow. Because I know I'm not assertive enough to get it back. I know I'm not. I think if Vivian let you her book, she would be getting it back. She would be like knocking down doors and get me that book. But here's the thing is if you go up a flight of stairs, I'm like, hey, could I have the book? So that is not a direction I follow, but I do know of people that do follow that direction because they're like, you're going to have to see me again because I'm getting my book back. I don't. I'll help you get your own. And I work with a lot of people online. So, I mean, I never know when Canada Post is on strike or not. Shipping across the border takes a while. So I might as well just help you get your own book rather than lend you mine. You wouldn't want mine anyway. It's falling apart and it's a little gross. It is well used. The joke, and if you know it, you're like, oh, it's a groaner and an eye roll. But if somebody's got a book that's falling apart, it's usually an indication that their life is not. Yeah. All right, top of 95. Welcome those that just joined us. So it says, unless your friend wants to talk further about himself. I mean, and what alcoholic wouldn't want to sit and talk further about themselves, But it's telling us like, hey, don't just natter on at them. I want to listen. I want to hear. I want to seek to understand. It says, do not wear out your welcome. Give him a chance to think it over. So one of the things that I'm going to point out is we laid down the foundation of steps 1 and 2 and 3 in a single meeting. We sat down with them in a single day and we gave them the information for steps 1, 2, and 3. If you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he is likely to say you rushed him. Now, I'm going to point something out. The rushing him would be getting on step 4 in a single day. That's the rushing him. Sometimes this line can be a little cherry picked to be like, oh, I ought not. Oh, we want to take our time. If you've ever had, and keep in mind, we are people that are likely to, but if you've ever ended up in the ICU, had a loved one in the ICU, you know what the emergency room doctors and nurses are not doing? They're not like, whoa. We got to take our time with this. Let's slow it down. We don't want to be too hasty here. We don't want to do too much all at once. No, they're like, this is triage. We got to treat you right away. And that's the same thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. We got to triage. We got to go. We got to move quickly. So it's that idea of like, a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and not to push in that way, is to get their 4 steps started on maybe day 1. Maybe do that day 2 or 3 is kind of what it's saying. But again, I emphasize that because the steps were never meant to be something that took a long time to do. Now, we're never done them. We continue to grow and seek and deepen our experience in this way of life. But we're meant to go at them. At least for me, I got to go after it like I went after a drink. And I talk about this quite a lot, so I apologize if you're sick of hearing me talk about it. But I was never sipping my drinks. I was not sitting there having a little sip. There was not ice, but the ice was not melting in the glass. Not once did I have those little paper umbrellas. That's not how I was drinking. I was going after it. But I come here and I want to just dip my toe in. Oh, I don't want to overdo it. Did you know you cannot overdose on Alcoholics Anonymous? You can't. That cannot happen. But I can drink myself into alcohol poisoning. That's for sure. So again, I just wanted to put that line into context. It's really like moving 4 through 9 on day 1. We can do that a little bit more day 2, day 3. So it says, you will be most successful with an alcoholic if you do not exhibit any passion for crusade or reform. Now bear with me with that line. And some of you are like, girl, that is you. I'm like, I know, I'm a little much. I can't dial it down if I wanted to. but the context of the chapter Working with Others, the context of this chapter is that it is rooted in after the 18th Amendment was repealed. The 18th Amendment was the change to the Constitution that made the sale of alcohol illegal in the United States. And then shortly before this book went out into the world, a few years before it went out, that was repealed. And so that was a major change to the Constitution. And that's kind of a big deal. And we know when anything controversial happens, that then it's all done and nobody's arguing about it and everyone's A-okay. No. So the idea about whether or not alcohol should be legal or illegal was a hot button issue in the United States. It was going to be a contentious topic. And so when it's saying not to exhibit any passion for crusade or reform, we're talking a little bit more about the tension that was there about the temperance movement and that sort of thing. But I will say, but it goes on to say this, which is true for each and every one of us: never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. See, I'm not here at the top of this mountain telling you what you need to do. We are shoulder to shoulder upon this common journey, and instead I will show you what I have done. That I'm no better than you, that I'm also no worse than you, that we are equal, and that I just might have a little bit more experience along this path. It says, simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. What is the simple kit of spiritual tools? Well, it is the 12 steps as outlined in this book. So I outline and I share this simple kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. So it's okay for you to ask me questions about but how would I inventory that? Or if I was upset about the 18th Amendment, how could I inventory that? If I, maybe not a hot button topic in 2025, but how do I inventory that? Or how do I make amends in this situation? Or what does your prayer life look like? What does your meditation look like? What is your experience with 6 and 7? And so one of the things that's important for me to understand, not necessarily you guys, but for me, is that I have to continue to work these steps because my life depends on helping you. And it does no good if I'm like, well, you should write inventory on that. And you're like, how? And I'm like, I don't know. Or it's like, yeah, you should probably make that amends. And it's like, how? And I'm like, I don't know, just do it, Or it's like, I hear prayer is important. You should meditate. Yeah, but how? It's far more helpful if I'm able to show you how I have made those difficult amends. If I'm able to show you how I've written that inventory. If I'm able to show you what my prayer life looks like, my meditation life looks like. What does my evening review life look like? And I can show you. And then the more that I do this work, the more skilled I am, the more adept I am at helping you. And see, I sometimes, man, some of you guys know, sometimes I do talks. And what I mean by that is instead of doing a normal thing, I do something weird. My last one was a fantasy novel through the 12 steps. It was wild. But some of you guys know that I've done talks on the economy of grace. And I speak about what was the economy of Paige. What was my life like when I was trying to do it my way and every single thing was wasted? Everything bad that happened to me was a monument and a testament to my failure that could not be overcome. But everything good and wonderful and valuable in my life, it turned to ash in my sand, drinking or sober. But you see, when I'm doing this, when I'm living this way of life, when I'm working these 12 steps as a way of life, my life depends on it because it does. Nothing gets wasted. Nothing gets wasted. It all gets used. It talks about that on 124. I won't bounce us around there, but that idea that nothing gets wasted. And again, like, what is the most helpful thing? It's let's be honest, in the words that I have said today, it has probably not been the most helpful for you to tell you that I have a daily prayer, meditation, and daily evening review, pen to paper written. You're probably like, cool. Or not cool, Paige, was like double L, I don't remember those, from the 90s. But what probably, whatever, double loser. Yeah, that. But what was probably more helpful is when I told you about why I got out of the habit of stop doing two-way prayer. 'Cause you know what that's like. And if I were to go into more detail about that situation and how I moved through that situation, how I got freedom from it, where the inventory has led me in my current experience, man, you're like, yeah. But yeah, I also have to have a daily prayer, meditation, and evening review life. That helps too. I'm not saying you have to, but I do hear is what all the cool kids are doing. And there's a rumor going around town that boys won't like you if you don't do your daily prayer, meditation, and evening review. And some of you are like, I don't want the boys to like me. I need a break from that. Anywho, sorry. So we simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Show him how they worked with you. So I'm going to show what these steps do for me and how they've changed me. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him that if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help. And that is something that I mean with my whole heart. That if you want to get well, I will do anything and everything that I can to help you. Now, with everything, there's a bit of an asterisk and a fine print. If you're like, I don't want to do the steps. Okay, I'm not going to make you do the steps, but I don't have another option. But if you have an idea for something else that you want to try, I'll even help you look that up. I'm good at the Google. You can tell I'm good at it because I called it the Google. Like all the hip young youths, the Googs, looking it up. But if you want this thing, I genuinely will bust my butt to make it happen for you. And I've got friends and sponsees, and there are people, and we will bust our butts to make sure that you have this experience if you want it. But if he's not interested in your solution, if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. So if you don't want to do the steps, you don't have to. That's all I got. And listen, I've shared this with you guys before. You know how I budget? It's based on vibes. So I am not a banker for your financial difficulties. Clearly do not come to the Bank of Paige for a loan. We're a little tapped out because vibes. And I'm not lending you money. But when it talks about a nurse for his sprees, I'm also not a nurse for one's emotional sprees. You know what I'm saying? And I will be there. If you have relapsed, I will be there. And if you need detox, I'll help you look one up. I'll help you look options if you want to go. And here's the deal. If you have been doing let's say it is the X. We're back with the X, we're off. We're back with the X, we're off. We're back with the X, we're off. And you're going through a cycle like that again and again and again. Man, I'm there. I will be there with you. But only if we're going to do some inventory. Only if we're going to do some work. And I'll meet you and I genuinely mean this, I will meet you with love and not an ounce of judgment. Man, I have been there. I know what it's like. I can't quit him any more than I could quit the booze. Not an ounce of judgment. Whatever the thing is that's eating you up, that's eating your lunch, that you can't get freedom from. Even if you've been sober a while, so it's not the alcohol, but it's the stuff. I'll be there and I'll show up. But what I do not have capacity for is the venting. Give me a little, and I will help you. But some of you guys can tell, I am somebody that I would held hostage on the phone. You guys know what that's like, where you pick up, well, actually the phone rings and you see who it is and you do the very spiritual thing of, oh, and against your better judgment, you answer it. And then it's and it's just go, and then I can't even get, I just want to, could I just, and I'm not kidding. I had a cell phone that I learned will automatically hang up after 2 hours. I learned because I couldn't hang up after 2 hours. I'm not kidding when I say I get taken hostage. And that is me. That is my defect of character that I couldn't get free of. I don't know about my current phone. Let's not test it though. And I will be on a phone 2+ hours if we're going to do work. I'll do that all day, every day. So I had to learn that wasn't helpful. It wasn't helpful for me because here's the thing, 12-step work, I promise you, it is invigorating. It is rejuvenating. Man, it is the best. It is everything that I was looking for in the bottle. And if you're like, that's not my experience, that wasn't my experience when I was trying to fix, manage, save, control, and codependent. And they would come at me with problem, and they weren't after a solution. I had a sponsor who said, if you're ever in trouble, you text me 911. I'll stop what I'm doing and I will call you right away. And I told my sponsees that when I started sponsoring. And I would have this sponsee and she would text me 911 and I would call her right away. And she'd be like, I'm about to drink. And I'm like, okay. And I would be like, all right, we're an hour out. Let's meet at this in-person meeting. I don't want to go to the meeting. Okay, well, could we do some work on your... No, I don't want to do that. Guess what that means? That means it's not an emergency. It's not an emergency. And so, and honestly, I'm really on my phone. So if you need me, I'll get back to you very quickly, more quickly than I should. So you don't got to text me 911. But I learned that just trying to fix and manage your emotions was not helpful. It wasn't helpful because I was feeling drained and resentful and frustrated and burnt out. And I wasn't helping you. Because you kept calling with the same thing. It was the same problem again and again and again. I wasn't even being helpful. And so what I learned was to practice honesty, to be honest about what my limitations are. I got the 12 steps and that's it. And also a little trick is I pick up the phone and I would say, hey, just a heads up, I've only got 20 minutes. And that is true even if it's emotionally. That's just a little helpful thing in the pocket for you. But here's the thing, I would have people that weren't my sponsees that would want to call and vent. And the more I would offer them spiritual solutions and all right, let's do some inventory together. It's wild. Actually, here's what will happen. One of two things. One is they will take you up on it and they will take the course of action and start to get well. And the relationship will change. The other thing is they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do any of that. So they stop calling. And all I will say is problem solved either way. Problem solved either way. All right. So we may have to drop him until he changes his mind. And not that we're firing people, but like, this is what I'm available for. If you want that, I will be here for you. But I'm not able to be a banker or a nurse, to be clear about what I have to offer. And it says, this he may do after he gets hurt some more. After he gets hurt some more. Pain is our motivator. If I'm not in pain, I'm not going to, listen, those 12 steps, they are not appealing. I don't want to do them. I'm not going to do them until I'm in pain. I've got to come to the end of myself. That hopelessness, that is what cracks me open and leads me to accept the hope that is on offer. I've got to go from hopelessness to hope. And what happens is if I burn my life to the ground, and I can do that drunk and I can do that sober, but what will crack open is a window of willingness. And when that window cracks open, I can take action. And if I take action in that window, that will carry me through. But if I don't take action, that window will always close and I will drink again. So it says, if he is sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. And what I will say is in 2025, I don't think most people could read this book by themselves and understand it and comprehend it. And that's okay. That's okay. So what does that mean? That means I'll read it with you. I'll read it with you. And my preferred way of sponsorship, the way that I prefer to sponsor. So I'll describe it. Forgive me if I've described it already to y'all and you're like, girl, we know. But if I haven't, don't worry. My preferred way of sponsorship is to sit down with a sponsee on a daily basis, if possible, a daily basis, and go through the book. Sometimes they can't sit longer than an hour because of their attention span, and that's fine. But to sit for at least an hour, 2 hours or more is preferable, and to go through the book line by line. And in so doing, we go through the book quickly and we go through it thoroughly. But also, what I've found is we have more women here than we have men, and not to speak in stereotypes, but just to base it on my own generalized experience. When I work with women typically have that thing where it's like, I couldn't possibly sponsor anyone. That's more common. And then, they've gone through the book, they've gone through the thing, they've made amends. It's like, I couldn't possibly sponsor. And then oftentimes I'll work with guys and we'll be like, just talk about the doctor's opinion. And they're like, I got 6 sponsees. It's like, buddy, no, slow down there. We gotta, that's the stereotype. But here's what I found is, and I've worked with people who are asking me for help because they want a new experience. They want to be able to sponsor others. And what I have found is the line by line experience helps me to have the most flexibility and adaptability in sponsoring others. When I can match my experience with what's in the book, I can be more flexible in taking you through the book. Or if we don't have time to take you through the book, to explain what step 1 is out of my experience, to explain what step 2 is out of my experience, and so on. So if we don't have time for that line by line experience, that experience that I've had line by line helps me to be more flexible in taking people through the work. And one of the things that I'll say is I've never been sponsored in the way that I sponsor. There are people that are like, I'm a product of good sponsorship. I'm like, I kind of just had sponsors that like kind of threw me out there into the deep end. And I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because it wasn't effective for me. I'm not saying they can't do that, and I'm not going to tell anybody how they have to sponsor or anything like that. But the way in which I sponsor, it evolved and it changed over time. So please don't feel that you have to be locked in. Well, my sponsor did it this way, I have to do it this way. I come from a part of the world where you meet your sponsor once a week and you read the book for an hour. And there are times and places, and that works for some people. But I was doing that for a long, long time. And I had 1, maybe 2 women get through the steps. It wasn't effective. And I could feel that. I could feel that this wasn't working. And so what happened is I started getting people that were, and I was wanting to work in a more intensive way with others. But, I was getting a lot of people that are like, no, thank you. Once a week is more than enough. But I started getting some people who were really desperate, who were really broken, who were really willing. And we started going through this work on a daily basis. And it started to change. And people started to get sober. And so when I part of why some of you guys know I sit with people as we work on their 4-step, you know why? Because it gets it done. It overcomes a lot of the genuine barriers that we might have: confusion, misunderstanding, executive dysfunction, overwhelm, and we just get it done quickly and thoroughly. And I do it because it works. So I encourage that. Like, the book is giving us directions. And we get to line our experience up with what's in the book. And if we hear something that's like, well, you got to do it this way. Well, if that way isn't working and you're feeling God calling you to try something different, do that. Do that, especially if it's out of this book, man. If it's out of this book, you're not going to go wrong. This book contains the 100... It was like 80, the experience of the first 180 members. But here's the thing. The more of us who have followed this book, And the directions as outlined in this book, the more of us who have had this experience. So I'm not saying go and you work with a newcomer and you just willy-nilly do whatever. But what I'm saying is if you're seeing that your sponsees need you to sit with them as they make their step 9 approaches, sit with them as they make their step 9 approaches. If you have a sponsee that just can't seem to get to that 4th column place on their own, maybe sit with them. And you guys get what I'm saying, you know? Like I'm not like saying like, and then let's just throw in a step 32 and throw it in the middle. Like, but what I'm saying is like, I get to grow and I'm meant to grow. I'm meant to get more effective in this thing. And that's what I want, is to be effective. And so like with the reading of the book and going through the book line by line, I love working with chronic relapsers. Spoilers, they're kind of the easiest in a lot of ways. Genuinely, because I don't have to dance around and be like, well, okay, maybe you don't have to do that. No, it's readily apparent you do. Let's go. I don't gotta pussyfoot around. We can just go. I don't even gotta, I'm like, well, if you don't do it, you're gonna drink. Let's go. Woohoo. I love chronic relapsers. And what I found is there are times when I'm working with somebody, and even as we go through line by line, they don't have the time to go line by line. They won't make it. And so we go through the work and we go back and do line by line as they start sponsoring others. And again, I'm offering this to see that there's some flexibility. I was often stuck in rigidity, a defect of mine, but that the whole thrust of why we're getting as much information about them as we possibly can is to see how we can be helpful to them, to see what they need and how I can give it to them. You know, and yeah, I used to be a tutor. For some of you, that'll make sense, that I have an informal teaching background. And some of you, that will be frightening. I was tutoring adults. Don't you worry. And my language has only got better, I promise you. But I've worked with people in academics as well as in Alcoholics Anonymous with people who had various learning disabilities, learning difficulties, learning differences. And so to be flexible about what they need and how they need it. And it's probably part of why I have all these different, and now I'm going to show you my working with others flow chart that I got. Now I'm going to do this, I got these different ways because we have different learning styles. And that's okay. I got to see how I can be most helpful. And here's the thing. If you're like, oh man, I'm recovered and I'm bored. No, there's no space to be bored. There's so much fun, so much growth, so much that we get to do. There's no time. There's no time to be bored. Alrighty. So if he is sincerely interested, page 95. And wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. Also, if you don't have time to read the book with, I'm going off on another tangent. If you don't have time to read the book with them line by line, maybe you have responsibilities that I don't have. Some of you are like, we can tell you don't have responsibilities. I don't. I am responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. At the hand of AA, always to be there. For that, I am responsible, but I'm not always on top of the laundry. That's not where that extends to for me. But there's also big book studies. We've recorded this one. It's available online. I've got recordings of almost all of the studies I've done available for others so that you can listen to. I was working with a sponsee and I can't remember what it was. For some reason, I had to then go out of town. And I wasn't going to be as available. And she self-sponsored herself with the recording. She was able to and I got back and she's like, no, I'm good to keep going. I'm like, sweet. And she was. Now, it wasn't her first go through the steps. It was a new experience. But that's a way that we can be flexible. And keep in mind, if you're like, oh no, Paige, I could not meet with somebody every day. Well, I just want to share with you another example. I came from a school of thought where one of the sponsors I had to call him every day for the first 7 days. If I missed a day, I had to try that again. And if I didn't do that, then we'd have to talk about, anywho, I'm good. That scares me. So I'll call you every day for the first 7 days. And then I had my sponsor after that, I had to call her every day for a month. And I did. And what I will say is, listen, I'm good at routine. But that was how I was taught to do it. So that's what I did, is I would have them call me every day. And you know what would happen? They would take me hostage on the phone and talk about their problems. Oh, it was the worst. It was the worst. And so here's the thing. I don't do that with my sponsees. I don't have them call me every day. We're going to meet every day. And you see, if I have time for a check-in on the phone, we have time to work together. You don't have to meet in person. We're not meeting in person, and we can recover. And we can go through a phone call that's 15, 20, 30 minutes. We can go through the book in that 15, 20, 30 minutes. There's more time available. We can just be a little creative about it. So again, I want to throw that out. Oh, because here, we can do that. You know how I know Bobby B? She's a girl. She's the girl. Our second secretary. Oh, the book is right. Oh, no. That's the other one. Hold on. I'm going to drop things. Bobby B, AA's fantastic communicator. She was our secretary, our second secretary after Ruth Hawk worked with Ruth. And here's the thing, she was sponsoring Alcoholics by mail. By mail. She single-handedly sponsored Australia. That's right, Michelle. By mail, And so we can be a little bit creative, And so it doesn't have to be an hour once a week. We can do, even if we're busy, there's ways to fit it in. There's ways to be flexible. There's ways to help others. And I'm just encouraging that, because sometimes I can be unhelpful because I'm stuck in my own, well, that's how they do it in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And there's a lot of wonderful things that they do in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And then there's some things that I found that I wasn't able to give them in a way that was effective. So again, I grow, I change. I'm meant to be effective. All right, so after doing that, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. So the alcoholic needs to make the decision. It says he should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. If he is to find God, the desire must come from within. Now that is an important line. If we are to have the spiritual awakening, the desire must come from within. But I also need to be aware that when an alcoholic gets sober, a window opens up. And I've got to help them move throughout that window, because it will inevitably close. And so that desire might be open. And if I wait too long, it'll close. I also want to point out, I talk about it. I'm like, I'll drag sponsees. I will drag them. But as soon as they start kicking and screaming, that's when I let go. So it's like, if you want to do it, you will do it. And I know that because I will do everything in my power to make it as accessible for you as possible. So it says, if he thinks he can do the job in some other way, or prefers some other spiritual approach. So if they're like, I don't want to do this. I want to go do this other form of recovery, or this, I want to do this treatment center, or I want to do this therapy module, or I really just think I gotta get back together with the ex. That'll solve it. Or I really think whatever it is, I got to go to the gym. Whatever it is. Here's what it tells us to do. Encourage him to follow his own conscience. So if they're like, I don't want to do it. I want to go to therapy. Wonderful. Go to therapy. Try that then. Go do that. And I'm not an expert, but I can look some up for you if you're looking for a therapist. If you want to try this type of therapy, I can look up that type of therapy and I can try to find one for you. If that's what you want to do. Now that might be like, girl, wow, that sounds a little different than some of the messages we hear. And here's the thing. Why would we encourage them to do it? Either they're an alcoholic or they're not. And if they're not an alcoholic, following their conscience, going in that direction might be the thing they need. They might do great with it. That might be great, amazing, wonderful. I didn't have to drag them through a 4-step. That's a win-win. Now, the other, it's just like that phone call conversation thing. It's like, we got win-win, is, let's say they are an alcoholic and they have the illness that is outlined in this book, and nothing less than a spiritual experience will overcome their obsession to drink. Nothing less than a spiritual experience will allow them to experience sobriety. well, they've got to go down that road and follow their conscience and try all the things that they think might work. And in so doing, that will allow them to come to the end of themselves and to be open to this way of life. So we encourage it. Because guess what? If I didn't encourage it, they weren't going to do it. They weren't going to do the steps anyways. They weren't going to do it anyways. And then they're just going to be bitter and resentful. And Paige, she just wanted to fight me about why I thought I should get back with the ex or whatever it is. So it says, we have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach that worked with us. And the humility. We're not saying we're the only thing. We're not saying we're the only game in town. But what is important is that this is an approach that worked with us. This is an approach that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt works. If I actually do the work, it works. And we know what it's like. At the end of the meeting, it works if you work it, you're worth it, so work it. Right? We hear that. But it works. But it only works if I'm willing to do it. And then to continue it on, you are worth the life that you get to have on the other side of this thing. You are worth the spiritual awakening. So you might as well do it. I hear it's what all the cool kids are doing. Oh, yeah, I'm like this. All right. It says, but point out that we alcoholics have much in common and that you would like, in any case, to be friendly. Let it go at that. So we're saying, yes, we're not leaving. If somebody's like, no, I want to go do this. Great, go do that. Have that experience. We're allowing them the dignity of their own experience. And they will have it regardless of what my opinion is on it or not. And if I keep my hand out, if the door is open, they might come back. But if I'm like, girl, you're doing it wrong, that usually doesn't like breed people coming back. So at least with me, to be fair, I don't got that super aggressive personality. I'm intense, I guess. I don't think I'm intense, but I've been told I'm a little intense. But it does say intensive work with others, so I'm just following directions, you guys. Oh, so 96. And by the way, I'll tell the joke again. So if you guys heard the joke, it's the story of the confused sponsee. So I'm going to tell some of you guys know where we're going. The confused sponsee. So there is the sponsee. And just has fallen head over heels, madly in lust. I don't listen, Paige, you don't understand. Or in my case, like the blue of his eyes matches the blue of his grippy socks. You know, his hair is the brown of the coffee that won't have the creamer stir. And no matter how hard you try, it's meant to be. He might not be Mr. Right, but he's Mr. Right now. Or in my case, Mr. Right out of jail. It's meant to be. But listen, I'll be the confused sponsee. I'm a good sponsee. I'm a rule follower. I want your approval. So I go to my sponsor and I'm like, listen, I found Mr. Right. And the sponsor goes, oh boy. All right, here's what I need you to do, Paige. What I need you to do is I need you to read the directions on sex, on getting into a relationship. They're easy to find. You should remember. Most of them are on page 69. Now, I'm the good sponsee. I will follow directions. I'm like, absolutely. Page 69, I can remember that. Hey, I can remember that. I got that, And, I'm on my way home. I'm like, 69. And it's me. I got the attention span of an absolute gnat. I literally see a squirrel. I'm enamored by it. It's frolicking. There's a red-breasted nuthatch, and I'm like, how delightful, And then there's a noise, and somebody's messaging on me on the phone, and I'll get back to them right away. And then I, get back, and I'm like, wait, what was I supposed to do? Oh, right. I'm supposed to read out of the book on romantic relationships. Right. What page was that again? 96. Okay, 96. So here's what my sponsor wants me to do in regards to romantic relationships. Do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Okay, that's fair enough. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. And this is why I like to read the book with them. This is why I do a lot of hand-holding, because how easy it is for that to happen. Oh gosh, yeah. And genuinely, it is kind of going back to that idea of like sponsoring in a way that I haven't been sponsored. I have a grand sponsee, and the grand sponsee was working with a sponsee of his own. And he was like, man, I wish I could just tell my sponsee what's in the fourth column for him. And I'm like, buddy, you can tell him what's in the fourth column for him. You can help him out in that way. But I remembered that his sponsor didn't do that with him because he needed to have to sit in the discomfort to try to figure it out on his own. Because if he was given the answer of hey, is this where you could be selfish? He wouldn't have retained the information. And I know I have a friend who, when she got sober, she was wanting to argue everything. So her sponsor was like, okay, we're going to do the steps. And then after we do the steps, you can go to a big book study. And so she's like, oh yeah, so my sponsees, they don't go to a big book study until after. But we can see that sometimes things are done for us because of our own personal experience or our own, hiccups or our own barriers. And so again, that ability to be flexible and to try to meet people where they're at, seeking to understand. So I was just thinking about that. All right. Again, attention span of a gnat, 96, not 69. Focus up, Paige. Alrighty. So do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. So if I'm working with somebody and they're not interested, if they start drifting, if they start missing appointments, we start having a conversation because I don't have time. I don't have time, but I did not have the assertiveness to say, what I need you to do is respect my time and match my effort. If you are wasting my time, it is not just my time you're wasting the time of people who would have sat down with me to do this work, but couldn't because you booked it. I did not have the assertiveness, and I'll be honest, most days I still don't have the assertiveness to communicate that directly. But here's how I started to communicate, which is the truth, which is people who no-show appointments, reschedule appointments, and don't keep appointments do not stay sober. I've never had a single person stay sober that's done that. And then you can do with that information what you want. And you see, if recovery is a priority, it is not the thing that I am rescheduling. But it's saying, do not be discouraged. The reason we need not be discouraged is because we might have planted a seed. And what they need to go through is that experience of finding out that their way does not work, or their way will work. Amazing. I didn't have to drag them through inventory. It's a search out another alcoholic and try again. So I don't need to dwell on the one that isn't interested. Go focus on who is interested. Go focus on who wants this, who I can help. And actually, when there have been people in my life that I love that are struggling and don't want this help, what I will do is I will sit down with somebody who does. Because that person that I love that's not open to this help, well, that person that I'm in front of is that person to somebody else. The person that I'm working with, there is somebody in their life who would give absolutely anything if that alcoholic could get it, if that alcoholic could get sober, if that alcoholic could be free. And I might not be able to help the one that I want to help, but I can put that energy into somebody who does. And I just feel like I'm putting more and more of that goodness and that grace into the world. And I'm after the ones that are desperate. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. If I keep looking, I will find them. And if I work in that window of willingness. It says we find it a wasted time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. And I will work with people if they're relapsing, if they're struggling. As long as they're showing up and keeping appointments and you know what I mean? That I will work with. And if you're doing that, I will bust my butt for you. But if somebody's not wanting to do the work, if somebody's ducking appointments, it's saying if you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. So if somebody's not wanting to do it, I can give them the dignity of their own experience. Now, bear with me with that. I'm not rigid or black and white. Sometimes you'll hear people that are like, I don't chase my sponsees. Yeah, I don't either. But if I don't hear from them for a while, I'm going to just reach out and let them know I'm here for them. And if they don't respond or they kind of half respond, I'll send them another message in a little while that's like, if you ever want to do this work, I'm here for you. I always try to, not perfectly, but I try to leave the relationship where my hand is out, where the door is open. So if whatever happens, that they feel that they can come back. Do I do it perfectly? No. Man, there's been a lot of times early in sponsorship where they're ghosting and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I'm human. So it says, to spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and to be happy. So again, if they don't want to do the work, and I'm trying to meet them where they're at, and let's say they're afraid of amends, so we write some fear inventory, or I handhold them with the approaches. Like, that's different. But if they're ducking me, if they're not wanting to do it, or they're not even open to saying, yeah, I'm ducking you, go help somebody else. Give them the dignity of their experience. That's what it's telling me to do. And it says, one of our fellowship, this is Bill Wilson, failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He struggled in sponsorship. The first alcoholic he was successful with was Dr. Bob, and he had been working with guys for 6 months, and nobody was getting sober. And he learned from his mistakes. It is okay in sponsorship to learn from your mistakes. It is okay to be imperfect. I promise you I have done it wrong. We learn and we grow. And God gives us the grace to learn and to grow. It goes on to say, suppose now you are making your second visit to, I skipped ahead. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says that if he had continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. So again, if somebody wants to do it, I will bust my butt to help them. And if not, I'm not, it's not mad. It's not, I remember I was working with somebody and we go through steps 1, 2, 3 out of the book. And at the end of it, she's like, yeah, I know I need to, but I don't really want to do that. And I was like, amazing. Thank you. Like that upfront honesty. We didn't have to dance around what she didn't want to do. So all of that to say, if you want to do it, I will do anything and everything I can to help. And if you don't, that is okay. I will give you the dignity and the opportunity to have your own experience, and my hand is out if you want and if you're ready. And that's it for me. I'll stop the recording.